You want to do it down here or you want to do it on your computer? Fine, then why don't you just log in like regular? Just go on like you do when Julie is. Well, I'll make you the host and then you can let people in. Al, are you going on?
Hi, Nadine.
I made you the host.
Okay, Deb, you want to make me the
I think I made
host?
you the host.
You made me the host?
I made you a co-host, so you can
So I can share a screen and stuff?
you can share a screen. I'm just gonna make you the only host.
Okay.
You're the host, so you can share a screen and you have to let people in.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm gonna jump out.
Okay. Nadine,
How are you?
hi. I still haven't thanked anybody for the campaign. And so Brenda,
Okay.
Anna, and Nadine, oh my gosh.
You're welcome very
Thank
much.
you. It was overwhelmingly incredible. It
It
really
was so happy that we can continue.
It was incredible. We were floored by people.
Hi, Al.
Hi, Sue.
How are you?
I was just thanking everybody for being amazing for the campaign, and that goes
It
to
was
you.
great.
It really was. Wow. What's going on there?
Not much. It's gonna get hot tomorrow.
Yeah. And
Oh,
hi,
yeah. Hi, Brenda.
Hi, so good to see you.
Hi.
We
Hey,
saw
look
you
at
for a
you.
second. There you are.
Yeah.
How are you?
You look very cute and Floridian.
Out in the garden, it's a gorgeous day here. Oh my God.
Ooh.
Yeah, before
like
the heat comes.
How does your garden look?
Oh my gosh. I'll send you pictures, okay?
What is it at a peak in the summer, or it's
No.
drying and
Beginning. It's been a rainy, cold spring. So we're kind of just getting going.
Right.
It's
What are
nice.
you planting?
I have a lot of Mexican pots, so I put flowers on the deck. And
Nice.
the rest kind of goes wild, but it's pretty.
Wonderful.
Love it. I
Yeah.
remember your pets.
You know, it's Shemitah here, so we can't plant.
That's right.
Yeah, it's Shemitah. So we basically just let everything go fallow, but as soon as Shemitah's over, we're gonna do a lot of planting. Things
When
just
is
grow
that-
here.
when is
Every
that
time you wake
over?
up, there's something new. What?
When is that over?
Rosh Hashanah.
Oh, duh.
Yeah. Hi, Adrienne.
Adrian.
How are you?
Hi.
You look so pretty.
Yeah, you do. Wait, this is not good that this is all being recorded. Well, we'll have to lop some of it off. I have to give it a.
You can keep that part about Adrian looking pretty.
Adrienne is gorgeous for the record. Hi, Leslie. Donna.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Ellie.
Donna, we still need our phone call.
I know, we will get it. We will make it happen. I know it. I know
I
it.
feel like you're not
Thank you.
you're not like on WhatsApp a lot.
you know what? I'm not, but
Right.
I will be looking for, I will get to, we will
Yeah, 'cause
connect. again
WhatsApp
soon.
is like,
Thank
right,
you so much.
right.
What's up?
Yeah, great. What did I want to, oh, so yeah, so Shemitah is until Rosh Hashanah, and you can't plant anything.
Right.
So, yeah,
Right, right.
we were talking about gardens and planting.
Allie, what are you under on WhatsApp?
Well, I changed my number to my Israeli number, so I need to text you first, and then either it's automatic
Then you can
or you have
respond,
to
right?
accept it. I can't
Oh,
remember.
okay, so fine.
So that's the problem. People like, yeah,
Yeah, I never know how to get in touch with
I
you.
know. I have, when I changed my number, I changed to my Israeli number because of, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. Wait, hold on one second. Hi, Stephen. Wait, I lost someone I just lost that, whoever just came on. Oh, there. Hold on. Okay. We spent really nice time with Julie Crennan and family.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
Oh,
Cool.
I'm glad.
Yeah,
So Allie, you turned me on to Barry Weiss. And
what, yeah, and your son too.
so, yes, so I was in actually Las Vegas last weekend because my client opened a restaurant with the Jonas Brothers.
Ooh, wow.
And he
Amazing.
said, you're going to meet the coolest rabbi of all time. And I met
Don't tell
Sherry
me, don't
Hirsch.
tell me, don't tell me, don't tell me.
Oh,
Shmuley Batea.
no, it was Sherry Hirsch.
I don't know who that is.
She's from LA and
Okay.
apparently she was the first female head rabbi at Temple Sinai there.
Okay,
And she's written a bunch of best-selling books. So anyway, she and I were talking and got into what happened to my son. And I said, do you know who Barry Weiss is? And she said, Barry's one of my best friends in the whole world. So
Barry's great. Barry is
Yeah.
one of those rare people that like sees nuance and isn't polarized and looks at things from all angles. She's a breath of fresh air. And she's just amazing. And she's married to a woman named Nellie Bowles. And Nellie Bowles is also just fantastic. And she writes this, she writes the Friday column. And we're not political here in L'Chaim Center, but they are like it's like the only news source that is nuanced and non-polarized. It's so refreshing.
yeah, I
There's
read every issue, every article now, and it's bipartisan.
Yeah, it really is. Guys, this is a great news source if you want a little sanity, if you feel like everyth's so polarized. Actually, you know who turned me on to it? Leonora Shaw, the cute lady on row 3. Remember Leo when we were at your house for dinner? That's the only 2 podcasts I get. The only 2 things I get is Daniel Gordis and Barry Weiss. Yeah.
Thank you, Leo.
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right, let's get started. Hi, Gail. Hi, Stacy. Okay, Stacy. I don't know if you can
Hi.
hear, but I have to figure out your number.
Hi, Allie.
You don't do WhatsApp, do you?
Yes, I have what's
Oh,
up.
okay, so I wanted to thank you, but also reach out to you, and it's ridiculous. So
Okay.
okay, I've got to do that.
No worries, no worries.
All right, okay, this poor class has been recorded for all the unlucky people that are listening in. They have to listen to all sorts of things. So we're gonna get started. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming back. I'm sorry I wasn't here for a while. But thank you all for an incredible campaign and your involvement and your support and your love. I could literally, we were so proud and so overwhelmed by just everybody. So we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. I know that the Levies are sharing a great, just planning so much. And our plan is to be in Chicago from August 4th to the 24th. So if you're in town, we'll do either an FNL or we'll do some sort of Shabbat celebration. So we're going to get that information out soon. Okay.
Wonderful.
Okay. So no announcements because Julie is in Tel Aviv riding bikes down on the shore by the ocean with her family. They spent Shabbos with us, which was super nice. Okay, and we're gonna get started. Okay, I'm also the admin, so I have to pay attention to who's coming in. But I'm gonna share my screen. Hold on. Hold on one sec. I gotta find out where here. Do you guys see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Very good. I hope I can see when new people, I can see when new people come. Okay. All right. So everyone can hear me and see that and see the screen.
Yes.
Okay, we're in the middle. I think Lori Roth just came on, and I don't see you, Lori, because I only have one line, but hello and welcome. We're in the middle of the 13th Mishnah of the second chapter. So this is this sort of what's the word, like life lessons from Rabbi Yochanan, who of course we call Rebbe. We just call him, what we call Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai is simply rabbi, because he really saved Judaism from two different Tikufot, from two different massively different periods of Jewish history. And when one was destroyed, it was almost inconceivable that Judaism could survive when Jews were exiled from their indigenous soil and they were kicked out of Israel and then came back partially and had during the days of the Second Temple and then kicked out again and entered into 2,000 years of diaspora and exile and persecution. It was inconceivable that Judaism could survive the trauma of 2,000 years. It's almost like, it's really like picking a rose and planting it in another set of soil conditions. It was like an unnatural reality for the Jews to have a Judaism outside of the land of Israel. But Rabbi Yochanan saved Judaism really and created almost, if you will, like a rabbinical Judaism without the necessity of being in the land of Israel. So he's the rabbi of exile. He's the rabbi of the 2,000 years until today when we were able to come back to our land. So in essence, the Mishnah begins with Rabbi Yochanan saying to his students, go out and see. So go out and see can really, a lot of the commentaries understand that Judaism has to pivot. Pivot in the deepest sense of the word. We have to keep God's laws in a whole new set of conditions outside of the land of Israel. So go out into the world and see who do you need to be? Like, what do we need to cleave to? What is the quintessential midah, the quintessential character trait that is the essence of the rest of them? What is the end all be all character trait where knowing that the Jews are ripped out of their indigenous soil, they are living in a whole variety of host countries, which will ultimately persecute them, ultimately hate them. They'll ultimately be pariahs in every single set of conditions that they're put in, and they have to survive. Yes, we're promised eternality from God himself that tells us the Jewish people is eternal and the Torah is eternal, but how will we survive? What character trait is the one that is non-negotiable, is the one to cleave to? So this is such a beautiful Mishnah, because it really, if we can remember the kind of the summation of this Mishnah about what it all comes down to, then we can apply it to all sorts of conditions in our own lives. So I just think this is like a gem of a Mishnah. And and we started it 3 weeks ago. We started with Rav Eliezer, who said ayin tova, a good eye. And we explored the meaning of ayin tova, but we're just going to sort of like look at one aspect of it. There's a lot of deep, beautiful Torah on what a good eye is. But I chose something, to sum it up, because we did go over it 3 weeks ago, something that's practical, something that we can hold on to. So Rabbi Eliezer said a good eye. Rabbi Yehoshua said a good friend. Rabbi Yossi said a good neighbor. That's interesting, given, is that really the end all be all piece of advice as we are thrust into 2,000 years of exile outside of our indigenous soil, creating a new Judaism? I mean, really? But okay. Rabbi Yossi said a good neighbor. Rabbi Shimon said haroya sanolad, one who considers the consequences to the things, the actions they take right now, one who looks to the long term. And Rav Elazar said a leiv tov, a good heart. And Rabbi Yochanan said to them, I prefer the words of Elazar ben Arach over your words, for included in his words are your words. So there's something about a good heart that encompasses all other aspects, all other traits that the rabbis deemed so critical for the sustainability of the Jewish nation, and also on an individual level. So the first thing is a good eye. Rabbi Eliezer said, a good eye. Okay. Now, it's important to remember that before, just a few Mishnahs before, in number 11, Rabbi Yochanan recounts their praise, if you remember. He calls Rabbi Eliezer a cemented cistern that doesn't lose a drop. Rabbi Yehoshua he calls happy is the one who gave birth to him. Rabbi Yossi HaKohen he calls a chassid, which means a pious man. We'll understand what that means. Shimon ben Netanel, a man who fears sin, and Elazar ben Arach, an ever-flowing spring. So those like appellations that he gave them are relevant to our Mishnah today. So Rabbi Eliezer, who is considered the cemented cistern, according to Rabbi Eliezer, who is the cemented cistern, he says a good eye. So I quoted a therapist, Sarah Radcliffe, who talks about a good eye. I just thought this was the simplest way to remember what an ayin tova is, a good eye. So Dr. Radcliffe says, or Sarah Hannah Radcliffe says, it means a good eye is not it's not a quality, it's actually a skill. It's actually an ability that you can learn, that you can develop. What is that ability? To interpret the world positively, to make a decision, to focus your attention on what is possible, what is wholesome, what is redemptive about any given situation. Now that is not easy, and she continues, because the way God made our world, it makes positive interpretation quite the challenge, right? We don't need to go much farther than the news. So much negativity. Really, there's just so much negativity. It's a conscious decision, so to speak, of God himself to make positive interpretation challenging. There is evil and darkness all around us, problems at all levels, from political to the personal. Neither nations nor individuals find it easy to live in harmony. Our imperfect worlds and relationships give us much to complain about and much negativity to focus on. It's always easier to see what is glaringly wrong than to see what is subtly right. So already, Sarah Khan Radcliffe is painting a picture that, yes, that a good eye isn't something you're born with. It's not just like the luck of the draw. It's an ability that a person must hone, that where to interpret what is not easy to interpret positively, just like God consciously creates us with free choice so that we can choose to connect to him, to choose life, so that we earn our excellence, we earn our greatness. He also makes negative interpretation very, very tempting and seductive. All around us, there is this tremendous imperfection. And it's easier to focus. It's just like it's easier to go down than up. The up is subtle. What's right is subtle. And yet, she says, the right is only subtle when we relegate it to a small corner of our universe. We do have the option, should we desire, to promote it to a front and central location where it can become the focus of our attention. Engaging in this act is what constitutes the development of the skill of a good eye. So literally making what is naturally and gravitationally, if you will, subtle, the subtle kindnesses, the subtle love, the subtle acts of good, the quiet but existent design of nature, God's love in creation, the consistent rules of nature that keep the world in control. These things are only subtle if we keep them subtle in our brains. But if we make a conscious decision to actively look for the good, or as they say in Chabad, they say in Lubavitch, in Hasidic thought in Chabad, they say that the Rebbe had what's called a positivity bias, meaning we are all biased. We read, for sure, when we read the news, if we believe this, we'll look for this. If we believe that, we'll look for that. If we feel this about a person, we'll come in with a nagia. We'll come in with a bias. We are all biased, and the Rebbe says it's not about not being biased. It's about choosing to be positively biased toward positivity. Most of the time, we're negatively biased, but if we come in with what is right about this person, what is kind about this person, what is interesting about this person, what might be true about this opposing view politically, what might be possible in this situation, what possibility is there for me to elevate this situation, then we're going in, we're all biased. Just like the mitzvah of judging someone on the side of merit, of giving someone the benefit of the doubt, in essence, it's saying, yes, you judge, we all judge. No one in this world doesn't judge, so judge positively. So it's a skill, and we hone it. And Rebbe Eliezer says it is the quality we can't do without. This is the preeminent quality. And this is a little bit, I was thinking about his appellation, or the kind of the praise, the unique praise that Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi gives to him is he's a cemented cistern. He's a plastered well that never loses a drop. And I was thinking, like, what is the connection? Some of the connections to their praise is greater than some of the others. But I think the thing that came up to me about this plastered well is that throughout our day, there are so many amazing things. There's so much possibility to see miracles and amazing things that just flit out of us. It just flies away from us. It has no permanence. We barely see it, or we don't see it. So the idea of a cemented cistern here is holding the possibility, holding the awareness of design in nature, of an orchestra, of God sustaining us, organizing history, directing history, God's love for us, people who are good, who do good things, not letting it just flit away, but creating a kli, a vessel where we really hold all the good. And so this is the first one. And that's what we did actually. That's what we did last week. Now we have two that I would say, okay, they're important, but I don't know exactly how important. Rabbi Yehoshua said, Chaver or Chaver Tov, a good friend. It's essential when we go out and see what is the quality that you need to cleave to, a good friend. So, I would ask you to think about in your life, what you think about friendship, and what it means to have a truly good friend and to be a truly good friend. But one thing, first of all, the word for friend is chaver, and it comes from the same word as chibur, which means to truly connect and to cleave. So the word for cleave, which is used, which is mentioned in English, is what's the right way that you should cleave, is very similar to the word for friend. It's the idea of, if there is a person in your life with whom you are truly committed to each other and you can truly be honest with each other, never ever endanger that friendship. That is the most essential relationship. It's critical. And I think one thing about a good friend, the whole concept of kanei lecha chaver, make yourself a friend. We've talked about this before, but the idea that a friend, if you will, is like a non-hierarchical relationship. You're not going to a rabbi, you're not going to somebody who's teaching you Torah or giving you necessarily advice, but it's almost on a peer level. But what they don't have is your blocks, your limiting beliefs, your Yetzer Hara, that a rational part of you that believes things that ultimately are not good for you, that a rational part of you that has beliefs about yourself and your life that lead you astray. That Yetzer Hara, your friend doesn't have yours. Your friend has her own, but she doesn't have yours. And therefore, because you have a unique negative voice, a unique inner critic, a unique non-conscious mind that sometimes sabotages you and you don't always think straight, the idea of a non-hierarchical relationship where this friend is free from your blind spots and you are free from her blind spots, and really from a Jewish perspective, that relationship of cleaving to a good friend is not just like to have good times together. It's also, they're a reflection of you. Where am I tripping myself up? Where am I going wrong? What's special about me? Where are you concerned about me? Is there something that you want to tell me that you think is getting in my way? Even with our best friends, we're very reluctant to be totally honest. I think that being really honest with anybody is quite difficult. But from a Judaic perspective, the idea that you have a relationship that you cleave to where they don't have your inner trip ups and you don't have theirs. And so you're there for each other, almost like to hold a mirror, and courageous enough to say, this is an area that I think is getting in your way, or I'm struggling with this, whatever it is. That's the definition of a chaver tov. So that's something to think about. It's pretty amazing to me that that a good friend is up there as like the one thing, but I guess it's that important. By the way, Rabbi Yehoshua, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, what was his praise for him? Fortunate is the woman, is the mother who gave birth to him, which is kind of cryptic. But for that, I think what we can say is, some people exude such positivity and warmth and love and bring such a goodness to the world that other people are roused to say about them something that sounds more biblical than current, but fortunate is the person who gave birth to this person. So I think what this is saying is something very interesting, which is this person is magnificent. He's just wonderful. And I really, really think this is illustrative, because if this Rabbi Yehoshua, if Rabbi Yossi, if Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai said about him, fortunate is the person who gave birth to Rabbi Yehoshua, which is so strange and cryptic that would be the praise. He must have been really, really wonderful. And for that, I want to say that it's really, really hard to be wonderful without true self-confidence, self-worth, a healthy sense of self-love and self-esteem. And I think that to be the kind of person that listens and is interested in other people and engaged with other people and compliments other people and takes pleasure in other people's good fortune and feels other people's pain. What a magnificent person this Rabbi Yehoshua must have been. To be magnificent, you have to really be magnificent inside, which means he must have been a very internally strong person. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I think there's a connection with strong, healthy self-respect, self-esteem, and the ability to be a good friend. Meaning you can only be as intimate with another person as you are whole with yourself. And I can, I can say it like on its flip side, I can say it the opposite. A lot of our struggle in relationships is just a reflection of our struggles within ourselves. We will see ourselves mirrored in our relationship. But by the way, this was really brought to life by a Breslover Rebbe named Rav Arush, who wrote many, many books based on Rav Nachman of Breslov's wisdom. And he wrote a book on marriage for men. And the premise of the book is she, meaning your wife, she is your mirror. She is your mirror. He would always say, she is your mirror, meaning whatever you're struggling with in her, and I think the converse is also true, absolutely. And it's not only in marriage, it's really in our relationships too. What we're struggling with in other people is going to be reflected, is really reflected back on the struggles we have with ourselves. So I think this concept of he's a magnificent person means he's a magnificent friend, because the more full and whole and healthy you are, the more full and whole and healthier relationships will be. So I thought that was just an interesting thing, that the praise and the statement that he makes a few Mishnahs later might have that connection. Moving on, Rabbi Yossi said, I'll read it in Hebrew. Rabbi Yossi said, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Shchein Tov, a good neighbor. This is interesting because Rabbi Yossi's, the praise that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai gives him is he's a chassid, or chassid doesn't mean he's chassidic. It means he's a pious person. The idea of chassid is he goes lifnei shurat hadin. He goes beyond the letter, lifnim shurat hadin. He goes beyond the letter of the law. He's a person constantly in search of connection to Hashem, of greater purity, greater cleaving to his creator. That's what it means to be a chassid. And I think it's interesting because I think what this Mishnah is saying is it's very, very hard to strive deeply for qualities that aren't reflected at all in the people around you. So the idea of being conscious with who your neighbor is, of being a good neighbor, but also being conscious of who you surround yourself with. I mean, it's very interesting. Like I've heard many times in like sociological terms in American Judaism that sort of like the death knell of like strong Jewish identity in America came when suburbanization, like right at the time of suburbanization, that when Jews left like, city neighborhoods where they were together a lot, where the synagogues were nearby, where the kosher butcher was down the street, where people lived together, they didn't have a lot, so they supported each other, they were there for each other, they lent each other things, the children were in and out of each other's houses. That sort of life lent itself to community, strong identity, a sense of belonging and a sense of responsibility. But when the Jews became more affluent and suburbanized and sort of atomized and became more isolated one from the other, Jewish identity started to suffer and become very, very watered down. So even a good neighborhood, good meaning like fertile ground for kindness and acts of loving care and mitzvahs and Shabbat and holidays celebrated together in a nearby synagogue. Those are the things, they're sort of the bread and butter of what kept the Jewish people alive. And ironically, it was the success of the Jewish people, the affluence and the success that led to like what I would call the atomization of the American Jew, meaning they became isolated one from the other. They became more affluent. They didn't need each other in the same way. So they didn't see each other in the same way. They had no synagogue to walk to. So Rabbi Yossi, I think here is saying, be a good neighbor, have a good neighbor, recognize the power of neighborhood, but also recognize the power of neighbor. We are very, very influenced by each other. Again, this is not about politics, but I was, when Julie and our family came over and I was talking to Julie's kids and we were talking a little bit about politics and whatever. And I said, like, are your friends pretty much in agreement with you to this kid, to Julie's son? And he said, all of our friends see things the same. Like we all see things the same. Is it because the way they see things is empirically right and true? Or is it true that we are just social beings who are highly conforming and highly concerned of what other people think? We're highly affected by what other people think. We tend to go with the flow, and we tend to fit into our environment. So Rabbi Yossi is saying, you better make sure that environment supports you as a Torah Jew, particularly because a Torah Jew is totally anathema to general culture. A Torah Jew is so antithetical and anathema and strange and sometimes disturbing to the mainstream culture. So to remain distinct and separate with love of other people, but with a sense of oneself as separate, distinct, even unusual, going against the flow, you have to be very honest and real with the fact that you are very, very influenced by your society. So be careful where you live. I have seen, I think of Chabad specifically, where families will live in the craziest of places. You could put a Chabad family in the middle of the strip in Las Vegas, and somehow they would make it. But in general, we are social beings, and we are very, very affected by other people's opinions. And every buddy thinks their opinion is right and the community in which they live is seeing something essentially right. But we know from history that that's for sure not the
Okay.
case. So we really have to choose a good neighbor, meaning we really have to think, what am I being influenced by? What am I automatically saying is good without investigating it further? There's nothing in our society that you shouldn't investigate, because you're a social being and you've been very, very influenced by groupthink. We all have. Even now when I read the newspaper in Israel, I don't really even understand Israeli politics so much. I'm not really involved in it, but to the best of my ability, I try to say, okay, what do I think? What do I think? What is truly my own? So a good neighbor is really, especially because Rabbi Yossi knows that the Jewish people are going to be thrust in all sorts of impossible conditions. And very, very often, there's going to be an enormous temptation to blend into the common culture, to deny the distinctiveness of the Jew. And so if you put yourself in a non-ideal neighbor situation where you are defensive or embarrassed or minimizing your religious practice out of a fear of looking strange, then it won't endure. So be extremely careful with whom you surround yourself by. Okay, we're getting toward the last one, and then we've got Lev Tov. Rabbi Shimon ben Netanel says, Haroi es hanolad. This is a really, really important phrase to be elsewhere in Pirkei Avot. It says, Ezehu chacham. Who is the wise person? Haroi es hanolad. The one who, before they make any decision, they, as Katie Asner taught me the term, you play the tape forward, right? That was the whole, when we were discussing like not drinking and, letting go of drinking so much. And that was something that we both really committed ourselves to. She said to me, play the tape forward, because the way we work is we have two different thinking systems. You could call it a Yetzer HaTov and a Yetzer Hara. You can call it many different things, but psychologically we have our conscious mind. Our conscious mind wants really good things. It wants to be in shape. It wants to exercise. It wants to eat well. It doesn't want to overdrink. It doesn't want to oversmoke. It doesn't want to yell. It wants, you want the good things. You want the healthy things. You don't want to be depressed. The conscious mind wants good things, but very often what the conscious mind wants and the non-conscious mind, non-conscious mind is formed by all the beliefs and all the assumptions and all the feelings and all the irrational feelings, if you will, like from your childhood and up to your present moment, which wants all these different things. And I don't think I'm alone. I think probably everyone can identify with this, that you want something good. Let's say something like you want to lose weight. You want to stop eating sugar. That's a big one, right? You want to stop eating sugar. And I shouldn't eat sugar. I'm not going to eat sugar. And then before you know it, the non-conscious mind, there's some sort of force that's overriding the conscious mind, and you're eating more sugar than ever before, right? Which leads to shame. And when you feel ashamed, what do? You eat more sugar, and around the cycle goes. But here's the point of that little digression, which is haroi, that means the one who sees, et hanolad. Hanolad means what will be born from the action. So it's basically what he's saying is we want rational things, but we desire irrational things. And the force inside of us that wants what's not good for us is very, very strong, which is why willpower doesn't always really work, because it's a muscle. And at a certain point, the non-conscious mind is just too powerful. So foreseeing the outcome means I know I have a strong non-conscious mind, which is going to go against everything good that I really want. So what can I do so that my non-conscious mind, or my Yetzer Hara, if you will, and my conscious mind, my Yetzer Hatov, how can I bring them into balance? I mean, I can tell you that I did this with alcohol, which is what I really did was I educated, I didn't do this myself. I did something called the 30-day alcohol experiment. And she takes you through all your beliefs around alcohol, but you could substitute it with candy or, gambling or I mean, you could substitute with anything. It makes me happy. It makes me relaxed. It makes me social. It makes me this. It makes me that. It's my reward for the end of the day, whatever. And she takes you through every belief and logically shows you why your non-conscious beliefs really aren't true. And you really don't, it really doesn't make you happy, and it really doesn't make you relaxed. So it's really the same thing. You're foreseeing the outcome means I know that when I do just what feels good at the moment, ultimately I'll feel depleted and I'll feel shame or I'll feel struggle. And I know when I do what's not necessarily easy for me, but is good, I feel greater and more powerful and more in control. So how can I, before I ever take action, how can I foresee what's being born from the action that I'm going to take? That's really what Roy Esanolad means. The one who can foresee what is being born, etanolad, from the action that you're going to take right now. Most of the time we act very impulsively. And here Rabbi Shimon is saying, no, no, no. Look, no. Impulsive action is one who is blind to what is born from one's actions now. So interestingly, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's praise for Rabbi Shimon is he feared sin, which is pretty obvious, because what is sin? What is it really? It's whatever I want right now. I want it as I want it, how much I want it, when I want it now. Sin is, the Talmud says, calls sin like a spirit of insanity. Or I would say the non-conscious mind sabotaging the conscious mind. It's just the overwhelming roar of the under the consciousness level beliefs about yourself and what you want and what will make you happy and what will make you relaxed. And it just overwhelms the conscious mind that wants the right thing. So when it says Rav Shimon feared sin, I think that's really interesting. What it really meant was he was so clear about when I do this will come out of it, and this will come out of it, and then I'll feel this, that he was able to do the right thing. He was able to really align his behavior with his deepest value of serving Hashem and keeping his Torah, because he was so clear and so willing to play the tape forward, so to speak, and acknowledge the trajectory of a wrong action and where it would ultimately lead him. So that's a very powerful one. But at the end of the day, the winner of the Pirkei Avos, the Midah that we should cleave to is Rav Elazar, who said, Lev Tov. And this is our last thing. This is our last quality, to which at the very bottom, you'll see that I appreciate the words of Rav Elazar ben Arach, says Yochanan ben Zakkai, above all your statements, for in his words, yours are included. So in other words, it's all about a Lev Tov. It's all about a Lev Tov. So let's take our last, hold on, what do I have now? Because I want to leave room for comments. And okay, so we'll take 5 minutes for a Lev Tov, and then we'll open it up to the group. First of all, it's all about the heart. In the last letter of our Torah, the last word of the Torah is Yisrael. So the last letter of our Torah is Lamed. And the first letter of our Torah is Bereshis bara, and Lamed and Bet spell the word Lev, meaning encompassed in the entire Torah is a remez, is a hint to the most important thing, which is our heart. So something about our heart. We are the heart in Judaism is really the seat of desire, not necessarily lust. This is really important because desire, when we think desire, we think, oh, it's filled with desire, like filled with lust. But really, from a Jewish perspective, that's the word taiva, is like lust. But the word desire is like, what do you really, really want? Like, what do you really, really want? And Rashi says very powerfully, he says that he actually comments on the verse in our Torah that describes tefillin, that describes the mitzvah in the Shema of tefillin. And it says, Lo sasuru, acharei levavchem, v'acharei einechem. It don't go astray, like don't get all messed up. Don't get all confused. Don't make mistakes by following your heart or by following your eyes. And on that verse, Rashi says, the heart and the eyes are spies for the body. The eye sees something, the heart desires, and the body commits the sin. So, in other words, we never just act. Our body never just does something. There's always things that precede it. You know, there's something that I learned, it's also something that I learned in the 30-day alcohol experiment. It's called pulling the gum. So if you imagine you take a piece of gum and you pull it, right? You're pulling it like slow motion. You're like seeing it and you're taking a moment and you're stretching it. So you can examine, oh, I didn't just take a drink, or I didn't just eat 7 Twinkies, or I didn't just scream at this person. I didn't just speak Lashon Hara. I didn't just do the action. Actually, I believed something which created like a physiological or an emotional response, which made me numb that feeling through sweets, alcohol, whatever it is. So this is not so different. This is basically saying, Rashi's saying, pull the gum. The body doesn't just sin, so to speak. There are actually 3 processes. Eye sees, heart desires, body acts. So the idea of getting curious about yourself, if you are, of course, I'm not necessarily talking about sinning per se, but if you're really struggling with something, you're struggling with anything in your life, and you baffle yourself because you cannot understand why you keep sabotaging yourself, pay attention to Rashi's verse here, which is, there's something that you're seeing, there's something that you're then desiring, and then the body takes orders. So Medrash tells the same thing in Medrash Tehillim. The eyes, now actually this is different. The Medrash is saying something different. Rashi says the eye sees, the heart desires, the body commits the act. Medrash Tehillim says the eyes follow the heart, meaning to say it's the heart that's the ruler. It doesn't start with the eyes. Desire is the ruler, sending directions to the body to be acted upon. But whether it's the eyes or the heart, the important thing is to understand that there's a message before you ever do something that doesn't serve you. Let's say, speak Lashon Hara. It doesn't just putting someone down in front of another person. It doesn't just come out of your mouth. There's a desire some sort of desire to be the center of attention, desire to come closer to this person over lamenting about that person, desire to form deeper connections through hashing it out about somebody else's life, a desire to be in somebody else's business. There is some sort of desire, and that desire directs the body, and the body is its obedient servant, acting upon the rulership and the rules of the heart. So that's why it says in Proverbs, and I think this is so beautiful, above all, vigilantly guard your heart. From it flows the springs of life. In other words, be very, very careful with what you're desiring, with what you really want. Your body doesn't act on its own. What are you wanting? Make sure that you're wanting the right things. You know, like I keep going back just because this was so fresh in my life when I did the alcohol experiment and I worked through the belief, alcohol makes me happy. And I did something called the work, which I incorporate in all my coaching. It's absolutely incredible, from Byron Katie. It's really, really wonderful. But you essentially, you ask yourself, does alcohol really make me happy? And then you go through a process where you discover, actually, I don't need it to be happy. What is happiness, and what does alcohol give me? And you go through a process where you rewire your brain to understand that the happiness you desire doesn't lie, in my case, in alcohol, but in other people's cases, something else. But Proverbs tells us, Mishlei tells us, guard your heart, guard the tender, invisible realm of what you desire, because God wants your heart. It says in the Talmud, in Sanhedrin, God desires your heart. He doesn't want you to just do the right thing. So, I mean, certainly here in Israel, everybody, everybody's Orthodox, not everybody, but around here, almost everybody's Orthodox. So I guess they're all doing, so to speak, the right thing. But that's not all it's about. It's wanting the relationship. It's wanting a connection. It's wanting to see the good in people. It's wanting to be there for people. It's taking pleasure in other people's successes. It's what you really want. It's deeper than behavior. It's the hidden stuff. It's not enough to do the right thing. God desires the heart. Avot de Rabbi Natan says, even if a person gives someone the most precious gifts in the world, but his face is gloomy, then it's as if he gave nothing. I don't know if that's true, but I guess on one level it is. But one who greets his friend with a pleasant countenance is considered to have given the best gifts in the world, even if he didn't actually give any physical gifts at all. The heart. This is in the Talmud, one must give charity with a pleasant countenance, with joy, with a good heart, a lev tov, emphasizing with the plight of the poor person and offering words of comfort. If one gives with a sad face or a forbissener punim, then the benefit of giving is lost. And, I actually learned that this is actually Hebrew, but it's Yiddish too, to be mefargain someone's. Lefargain is a wonderful word. That's Hebrew, actually. And I think maybe it's from Yiddish. I don't know. But it really means truly feeling the good things that other people receive, because you're plugged into taking pleasure in other people's joy. And I quoted Shalom Aleichem because I think I've read him only in English. I can only imagine how wonderful he must have been in Yiddish, because it's so good in English. It's so, the Yiddish stories are so good in English. I can't imagine how amazing they must be in Yiddish. But he says, listen to this carefully. When I have a good day at the market, I tell my friends I had a bad day. That way I'm happy and they're happy. But if I have a bad day, I'll tell my friends I had a good day, because that way my misery has company. So he's touching on like the human tendency to not really be mafargain other people, to not necessarily take pleasure in their joy, especially when that is a thing that you don't have. So to be fargain is a wonderful word. He's to be someone who's mefargain. It means even when they don't have the thing that you have, they're happy for you that you have it. So that, of course, was, and I'm going fast here, but that was the quintessential quality of Aaron, that he rejoiced in his heart when Moshe was given the highest level of responsibility, even though he was the older brother. The ability, even when it's a reflection, there clearly was something he didn't have that Moshe had, and yet Moshe received it and he rejoiced in his heart. And Rav Dessler says the situation had to be difficult for Aaron, but because he had and actually had cultivated, this is important because it's not just something you're lucky enough to be born with. We have to cultivate our Lev Tov. Because he had cultivated a Lev Tov, he yearned for the joy and success of others. And that inner attitude extended to celebrating the leadership role that had been assigned by God to his younger brother. And the last thing that I want to read is a really, really beautiful quote from Mishlei. And I'm going to end it here because I think this sums up Lev Tov. And it says, V'tuv Lev Mishteh Tamid. A person with a good heart, for a person with a good heart, life is a constant party. Life is a constant feast. V'tov Lev Mishteh Tamid. It means with a good heart is a permanent feast. Mishteh, you might recognize that word from the Megillah, from Megillah's Esther, the Mishteh. That life is a permanent feast, meaning, you know, I won't even say what it means. I'll leave it to the group to discuss. But for the person who cultivates a good heart, any situation you can be in a state of like rejoicing. So I won't say what I think that means. Someone else can weigh in. V'tov lev mishteh tamid. So I mean, it was almost like Rav Elazar was saying, a Lev Tov is the one that's most important. And Rav Yochanan says, yep, you are right. Because in your words, everything else is included. Because with a Lev Tov, you will be able to handle anything. You will be able to put the good at the forefront of your brain. You'll be able to live in that space and rejoice in the goodness for other people. Your life will be a permanent feast. So it doesn't say if you have a Lev Tov, everything in the outside world will be great, because obviously it wasn't, and it isn't. But internally, your life is a mishteh tamid. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this. Okay, here I am. All right. And okay, so with the rest of our time, it is getting toward the end. So if anyone has to go, they should for sure go. But who has anything to add or share? What does it mean that your life is a permanent celebration when you cultivate a heart, a good heart, a Lev Tov, or anything else anybody wants to share?
You know what, Allie, this makes me think of, I have two